Greetings everyone, welcome to ChessAdvancedd. This game was played in MTX Chess London and MTX Chess Classic, and this is going to be an epic matchup with the white pieces. We have Alireza Firouzja from France and facing off against a very strong Ukrainian grandmaster. We have Eljanov Pavel, and he is roughly 2656, and while Alireza is 2762. He is in the elite club, so let's see how this match goes. Alireza with the white pieces starts with d4. We have knight to f6, c4, e6, and just knight to c3. This is the East Indian defense. You can sometimes transpose this with bishop to b4 to Nimzo, but here just d5 was played. We transpose to queen's gambit decline, and now just comes the c captures, e captures. He goes for the exchange variation Alireza, and now just comes bishop to g5. This is the positional line. Let's see here. c6 was played. This is the Slav kind of setup. And now just going for this queen to c2. h6 finally pushing the bishop back. And the bishop to h4 was played. But now just comes this bishop to e6. e3. Now everything is structured. This structure has been read so many times in the FIDE World Cup, I cannot even tell you, but everything is fine here. But knight bd7 was played, and now Alireza goes for this bishop to d3. He doesn't bring the bishop back or develop his knight. He goes for bishop to d3, and he invites g5 in this position, and Pavel just goes for it. And g5 is a very nice move in this position. The knight not being there, you cannot even sack, and obviously I don't think so even you would want to sack when the knight is on d7. But here in this position, there was a crazy move that I was thinking about that I hoped really would work in this position, and I was very glad that it doesn't just completely blunder the game away. And that move was f4. Yes, you can even give up the piece in this position. Your position would be a little bit bad, but you will have very nice development. Let's say if you try to go for this g caps on f4, that move is f5, and I was thinking that this bishop could be trapped, and that would be a very, very bad thing. So you could have to face some trouble in this position, and that's what I was hoping for, because now everything is developed and the king is still in the center, and that's something that I can use. Hey, queen to e7, and now a queenside castle. You don't even have to bother to capture this. Hey, just knight to c5, even giving up another piece, because now you can save the bishop if you capture the knight. But hey, just f caps on e6, and after this knight caps on d3. Now I am able to trade that bishop, but hey, just queen caps on e6, and I can develop. Maybe if you go for a queenside castle, I can get the rook in as well, and the idea is like e4 will be there on my horizon. So this is a very nice position, although engine says it's good for black. I don't agree with the engine, but I like my positioning. But here after g5, bishop to g3 was played, and just going back, not going for anything crazy. Alireza knows that if he wants to win this game, he should just avoid the craziness. He just knight to h5, now targeting that bishop, but just knight g to e2. You want to capture it, you just go ahead. Alireza says, hey, just knight caps on g3 was played by Pavel, and now just comes knight captures, knight to f6 now, and here finally going for queenside castle. Queen to c7 was played, king to b1, a nice prophylactic move, always useful. You're gonna have to go to all the way back to a1 because there is a light square conundrum, so you're gonna have to be careful. A queenside castle by Pavel as well, so he is ready for a fight in this position. And although you could go for a passive move, making some breathing room for the king in this position, and after king to b8, just go for even h3, not allowing the knight to jump, or even ideas like g4 will not be there in the position, but just h5. And if h4, then just comes g4. If knight to a4 in this position, trying to get the knight to c5, all I'll do is just get the bishop to d6, and my position is very nice. Although you can attack the bishop there, but knight to f5 is much more powerful. That bishop is going to be there, and this knight is going to be nuisance. Either you give it the bishop pair now, which I'm sure that Pavel will be inclined not to do. A bishop to f8 would be the move, because now the thing is that these two squares are taken by the knight. If anywhere you move them, I'll just capture it with the knight, and I'll be very happy with the trade. But hey, just knight to c5 and knight to d7, targeting that knight in this position. You're gonna have to go for a trade, or either you go back. Whatever be the case, the game goes on with both players having roughly equal chances. You don't have a move like b6. Never make the mistake, because that would be a very bad fork, and you'll just resign right here. But after queenside castle here, rook to c1 was played by Alireza, very nicely aligning this against the king, and just king to b8, prophylactic move, always useful. Knight to a4, and just comes this h5. And finally, Alireza goes for h4. We have rook to g8 now, but now just comes this knight to e2, g caps on h4, knight to f4, and rook to g4 in this position. So everything is looking very nice here. I mean, Pavel is trying to create some chances towards the king side here, because but the queen, you have castle towards the queen side. So now here you need to be a little bit careful. As long as that knight defends, you don't have that much worried. You're not that much worried in this position. Just knight to c5 was played in this, just getting the knight there, attacking the bishop, and hoping to get that double captures in, because then that will also come with a fork. but Alireza in this position just goes, Pavel in this position just go for this bishop caps on c5. He trades the bishop and finally gives it up because the annoyance is a bit too much to deal with. Queen caps on c5 was played by Alireza, and in this position there was a very nice move for Pavel. So I'm going to ask you to pause the video, try and find out this move, which just allows you to hold the advantage in this position. Have at it. So congratulations to everyone who's able to find this idea. The move is rook captures on f4, sacrificing the exchange. That's right, because here after e captures, your structure is a bit too shattered in this position to be able to do, for you to be able to do anything. Because even if you get the rook in or you do anything, let's say you try to go for this queen to b4, trying to go for ideas like bishop to a6 in this position, then just comes h3. I don't mind in this position because here after g caps on h4, now you have this knight to e4 threatening this, just going and attacking towards that. And if this bishop caps on e4 in this position, d captures, rook to c2, just trying to develop. Even my position after giving up the exchange is still fine because I have this light square bishop. If queen to f6 now, just trying to go for the attack towards both of these pawns. You cannot go for capturing right here because now, somewhere along the line, once those rooks were connected, you could have gone for that rook to f1 to try and target that. And also you can take up this open file and the game would be very decently. But after this queen to c3, e3, and after this f caps on e3, now you just go for bishop to f5 and now pin that, and now you can win the exchange back. King to a1, bishop caps on c2, queen captures, and your position is very nice. The structure, these are hanging pawns. Somewhere along the line they will come under fire. You can have an f passer if you're really lucky, but that was the best that Pavel had in this position. But after queen caps on c5, he decided against that. He went for this rook to g8, trying to double up and put some pressure towards the g file, but you will never capture because obviously this knight capture and lose the exchange, but you could have sacrificed it and then you would have gotten a lot more. But here, just going for this queen to b4, the best move recommended by the engine. Bishop to c8 now, just defending against any bishop to a6 idea in the future. But now just comes f3, pushing the rook back, rook to g5, and finally just going for this rook caps on h4, just grabbing back that pawn. Bishop to f5 now, asking for a trade. Bishop captures, rook captures, and now this rook is a little bit misplaced. But let's see what Pavel has in mind. Hey, just rook to c3 played by Alireza, trying to double up. Maybe you'll have some insane chances in this position. Also, you want to remaneuver that knight to a better square. Maybe c5 would be a very nice square for the knight. But hey, just knight to d7. Just preemptively preparing against that knight to d7, and also trying to remove the knight as well because that knight on f6 is not doing that very much. Rook to c2 was played, and now just comes this knight to f6 back. And there are a lot more moves you can play in this position. The best move in this is actually going for queen to e1, trying to just put some pressure. Also, you have moves like e4 in there. You always want to go for e4 in these types of positions because that is the only breakthrough you have, and that will also create a passer. And if you're able to even lock in after the trade and push that pawn towards your position, would be absolutely amazing. Let's say rook to g5 in this position, trying to get the rook back into the game. Then you have a3, just making some breathing room. Black is going to have to do the same because you don't want to get back rank mated somewhere along the line. King to a2, then just comes queen to e7, just opposing my queen here, but queen to c1, and now the pressure will be there. Rook to g7, you're gonna have to go back because that rook is absolutely doing nothing there. Rook to c3, I will most likely go towards b3, put some pressure on that file, maybe hopefully get the knight remaneuvered toward there, and I want this rook to be somewhere better. It's like having that concepts of dream squares where you're able to put your pieces on the better squares or the dream squares that you want, and you want to see where you want the knight to be, where you want the rook to be. This is exactly what I'm doing. I want the rook to be towards the king side. It tries something in this position, but for now you cannot move the knight because this rook is hanging. So now you're able to this pawn is hanging basically with the rook, and the trouble is all you want to do in this position is try to protect that backwards pawn, and then you can go for an attack, but that's easier said than done. But after this knight to f6, a4, and now comes this rook to e8, targeting that backwards pawn, and here we have rook to c3 defending against it, but now just comes a5, attacking the queen. Queen to b3, and just rook to g5 in this position, again putting pressure because now the knight cannot move and you won't have ideas like that. But hey, just rook to h1, just trying to put the rook back and see where the rook can go from there. Knight to d7, and now just rook caps on h5, finally grabbing that pawn by Alireza. Rook captures, knight captures, and now he has a very nice structure. He should be better, but how better is he? Can he utilize this endgame and actually convert this to a win? We're just gonna have to wait and see. Knight to b6 was played, but now just comes this king to a2, and you can always go here, but I don't think so anyone would want to in this position. Here just king to a7 was played, and now just comes knight to f6, attacking the rook. Rook moves, and just rook to c5, and now that is a problem. So either you move the knight or get the king away. Here Pavel chooses to go with the king back, but now comes the idea, the move that I've been discussing and telling you that you want to do in this position, and that move is e4. And hey, d caps on e4 was played, but now just comes f captures, and now just going for knight to d7, asking for a trade, but this trade is only in Alireza's favor. As you can see, the engine evaluation shifting. Knight caps on d7, queen captures, and queen to g3 check. Here queen to c7 was played, and whenever you are better in the position against rook and a queen, maybe have a queen and a knight, maybe have a queen and a bishop. What you don't want to do is simplify the position. Let's say if you try to go for this queen caps on c7, king captures, and then you try to go for e5 to keep the pawn. The trouble is this position will only yield you a draw. Rook to d7, then just comes rook to c4. If f6, trying to just break open and bust open this position. E caps on f6. If you try to go for this, then just comes rook to d6. And although you have f2, I have rook to f6, and this is the time, because here if you go for d5, because obviously you cannot capture this, just this rook caps on f7, and you're not worried. D captures, and although you have an outside passer, this position is still going to be a draw, and that's the trouble. But here after queen to c7, Alireza, obviously he has played countless times bullet chess, countless times blitz chess. He has played thousands of games. He has studied thousands of endgames. He knows that that's not something that he's supposed to do. Queen to g8 check was played by Alireza. Queen to c8. Now just comes queen to g3 check, queen to c7. And now in this position, just queen to d3. And after queen to f4, here in this position, just rook captures on e5 was played. Now just comes this rook caps on e4. So it's a trade-off between the pawn and the center pawn. And normally you would want to keep the center pawn, but in this position, it's absolutely fine. Because here g3 now attacking the queen, rook caps on d4, and just g caps on f4, rook caps on d3. And now just comes this rook to f5. And here rook to d4 was played, taking up that pawn, but here just king to b3, and now just comes king to a7, rook caps on f7, and now he allows another passer to be created. But is he gonna get the a4 pawn in return? We're just gonna have to wait and see. King to b6, now just comes f5, rook to f4, f6, and after rook to f3 check, king goes to c2, but now we have c5. And now the trouble for him is that this position is completely winning, but Alireza still needs to find the right idea, and that is rook to f8, and he finds the idea. King to a7 was played, but now just comes king to d2, rook to b3, and here in this position just king to c2, keeping that eye on that pawn. Rook to f3, king to d1, rook to f4, and here just king to e2 was played, and now just comes this rook caps on a4. So he is able to get the pawn back, but Alireza's pawn is a bit too much faster. Here rook to e8 was played, but now just comes this rook to f4, and rook to e8 was a move that actually gave away everything in this position. The move that you wanted to play in this position is actually king to a3. Get your king closer to the pawn. It's always a standard concept in the endgames, but both plays are down to minutes, and then you're going to make all sorts of blunder. Here rook to e8 was played, which throws away the game if and only if you're able to find the right idea. And Pavel, with less than 1 minute on the clock, he was able to find the idea. Rook to f4, just putting the rook behind the passed pawn. Rook to e6, and now b6 was played, but now just comes king to e3. b6 is a horrible blunder in this position. You were supposed to go for some other move than b6 in this. Here you can try to go for even b5, just push those pawns, and you will try to create some counterplay in this position. But b6 is a slow move. b6, king to e3, and now you're completely losing. Rook to f1, king to e4, king to a6, and king to e5 was played, and now you cannot hope to save this position. King to b5, but now just comes king to d6, king to c4, king to e7. And the mistake that he did was a natural mistake, I would have to say, because anyone could have made that mistake. Even I could have made that mistake if I didn't have time on the clock, because he had b5, and now just comes f7. And the idea is that he thought in this position he can go for this rook captures on f7, which he did. King captures, and now those pawns are pushing forward. Here king to b3, but now just comes king to f6. King captures on b2, and here he thought that he might have some chances to push the pawn, and maybe this is going to be a draw. If the pawns were here, maybe then he would have some chances. But king to e5, now have c4, king to d4, c3, and now he understood that unfortunately for him, this is not a draw. Neither it is a win for him. It's a win for Alireza, because in this position, Alireza goes for the best move. He goes for rook to e2 check, and here in this position, Pavel Eljanov resigned the game, because now you cannot do anything. Let's say you try to go for king to b3. Obviously you cannot go back forward because this is going to be captured. So after this king to d3, you try to go for king to b4, and rook to e4 check in this position. King to b3, rook to e7. Now you're going to push b4 and maybe hope somewhere along the line that you can get these moves in, and then you can go for a draw. But here rook to b7, and now you're in trouble because you cannot go for king to b2 because of this pawn falls. So here king to a3, but now you have vacated the c2 square for the other king to come in, and once you do, king to a4, and if you rook to b8 in this position, king to a5, you can have to go for king to a5, because now the trouble is you cannot even go here because this is going to be a checkmate in this position. So you need to be careful. And after king to a5, just king to b3. If c2, if you try to just, this pawn is falling, basically you have nothing. So if c2, king caps on c2, king to a4, trying to go with the other pawn, but it's gonna fall as well. King to b2, king to a5, whatever you do, this position is completely lost, and you're just getting checkmated no matter what you do. It is just as simple as that. All you have to do is just go back. You can also go rook to d4. There's a lot of moves in this position. You can even try rook to g4, and this is going to be still winning. This is a very, very sad thing. But this is what happens when you get mixed with endgames and low time on the clock. The blunder is about to happen, and Alireza was able to win this absolute amazing positional masterpiece. So yeah, thank you all for watching. I'll be coming back with some of these amazing games, so stay tuned to the channel, stay updated, and I'll be seeing you guys very, very soon. Thank you very much for watching.